Payday, a game coming from humble niche beginnings growing into a genuine successful fun game for all. Even today, Payday 2 is being played by about as much as Left 4 Dead, Cyberpunk, Battlefield 2042 or Elden Ring. This year releasing its third installment, the long-awaited Payday 3 was met with disastrous consequences. It was poised to be better in every single way for more fun meth cooking and hostage killing adventures, but it wasn't. After seemingly iffy beta, the full release confirmed the biggest fears for a lot of players. Developer, now Starbreeze Studios, who acquired the IP, and the developer Overkill chose to learn lessons from Payday 2's development and success. However, the lessons they chose to learn were the wrong ones. And just like the story of the Payday 2's development behind closed doors, with its founders falling out and the piracy issues as well as financial troubles, there's a bit more to the story. So come with me and let's together take a look at the failure of Payday 3, and maybe a glint of hope that might be shimmering in the darkness yet. So, first things first, I never liked Payday. Yeah, that's right, I hated its original gameplay, the tanky enemies as well as the setting. With Payday 2 releasing and gaining notoriety, while I still didn't like it, I always heard good things from a few friends who played it. And while the game might not have been for me, I gained respect for it more and more. So, today I decided to play a few rounds of Payday 2 and... you know what? This is quite exhilarating and fun? Yes, I'm actually enjoying it. These tense stealth beginnings and the inevitable bombastic adrenaline-fueled rush as the shit hits the fan, I think I get it. I get why this game is so beloved. So then, why is Payday 3 so dead? The launch was very successful, reaching new player heights, and developers even bragged that they made the money back in the first 2 weeks. So, what happened? Even today, after the update 2 had brought in a few glimmers of hope and the player numbers have increased twofold, Payday 2 is still 10 times more popular than its sequel. Man, but TheYamiks 2 to 3,000 players is still really good. What the fuck are you saying it's dead? The game just released, the update 2 brought in new people, or at least some of them back. Well, that is true, and this is the glint of hope I mentioned, but it's not enough. Not yet. Now, to learn why Payday 3 might still be heading for the chopping block of dead games, we first examine why it failed in the first place. Let's start with the gameplay first. Did it fail? Well, honestly, not really on the first glance. In fact, in all areas, Payday 3 improved drastically. Better AI, well, despite the fact that it's still incredibly stupid by TheYamiks standards, but never mind. No more stupid post-processing filters and ugly visuals that made TheYamiks vomit in his mouth while playing Payday 2. Guns look pretty good and all other models are also more or less up to modern standard, and hell, even optimization seems passable. But you see, the problem arises from the little things. While I was looking at what other creators had to say in their critiques, a rather interesting comment was made.
And they feel good enough where it's not floaty or slippery like the diesel engine. But then again, a wet fart is better than a diesel engine. However, everything else is pretty clunky. Sliding, vaulting, and integrating shooting to movement, they're all very slow. Things like slide to shoot, sprint to shoot. These are very slow actions, and now that I've actually had a chance to play with all of the skills and mods, they don't really help that much. You know, it's clear that these actions are intentionally slow, just to slow down the gameplay. But I think that's the wrong way to approach it.
And you know, I feel it too. And not just in movement, but overall gameplay. Enemies on same difficulty seem to be more tanky, and a lot of other little things that lead to overall experience to be oddly slower, less exhilarating than its predecessor, when the proverbial shit hits the proverbial fan. While I'm not asking the game to be the next Call of Duty and ramp up its gameplay spasms like what Modern Warfare did in recent years, sadly for Payday 3, this implementation is simply just not as fun or interesting as Payday 2's. Again, you can have a far slower game in the same franchise and it be a far superior too. For example, the recent God of Wars comes to mind quite a lot. So it's rather about how the change is handled rather than what the change is. The next very notable problem that anyone left playing Payday 3 after launch admitted was the grind. The progression of the character level was a big, and I mean a big problem. So basically, to anyone who's not familiar, there are infamy points. Basically consider those character level XPs were only given through achieving challenges. Like for example, kill 1 police officer, kill 10, kill 100, complete a heist 100 times, complete a heist 100 times in stealth only. Stuff like that. And these character levels unlocked weapons and skill points. So, the fact that you could complete a mission and get absolutely no challenges completed meant that you basically didn't progress, which is ridiculous. And once those easy challenges end, it only gets worse. Now, I guess you could say, luckily, in the recent update too, they added some small drip feed of infamy points for completing missions. But the amount is rather small that it makes you wonder whether or not it wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction to the negative backlash, to just how shit the progression system was. Seriously, character progression through only challenges? What bullshit were they smoking? But TheYamiks, skills themselves and weapons rank up separately. And yes, that seems to be the only good thing. The fact that weapon and skill progression was not tied to the fucking character progression. Hallelujah! Even so, it's rather obvious that with Payday 3, the developers intended the game to be even more grindy than the last one. And this is one of the wrong lessons they've learned. To keep players playing longer, just ramp up the grind. Now why does that sound so much like Starfield? I wonder. But you know what? Trust me, it works. See, I come from Elite Dangerous and PlanetSide 2 backgrounds as a creator, and fuck me are those games grindy, especially Elite Dangerous. See, the mindless task repetition is one of the easiest ways to keep people playing, despite it offering barely any challenge or fun in the first place. Still, it is a common manipulative tactic. But why make your game even more grindy and thus increasing retention? Well, it's probably in the service of our next wrong lesson. After overwhelming success, at least in popularity for Payday 2, I'm guessing the developers saw DLC as a profitable but too difficult of a business practice to keep up. Granted, Payday 2 was supported by tons, and I mean tons of DLC over 10 years, but it also was not easy to keep producing actual content and gameplay to earn money. So, what if we do less work but earn the same amount? Enter live service games, or GaaS, games as service. These games are always online, release small updates from time to time, and monetize the shit out of their player base while doing less work. This monetization type is ripe with fraud. For more information, please go watch this video. But in case of Payday 3, developers seem to be desperate for some kind of better monetization model while also keeping as high of a player retention as possible. And of course, no other model does it better than live service bullshit. Of course, live service also has the nasty side effect which I mentioned before, and that is making their games exorbitantly grindy to keep people around. And while the players are grinding for the morsels of fun, the developers can release small updates to renew the interest, and of course alongside it, maybe release some cheaply made DLC or microtransactions for better monetization integration. And yet, all of these problems or failures that I mentioned before are minuscule in comparison to the biggest, probably most single-handedly shittiest thing about Payday 3. No offline mode. This rang over and over again after the launch. Why does the game has no offline mode? Why is it always online? What are they doing? The servers are fucked! So let's go over the launch first. See, the game had beta before the launch and some smaller things changed, but largely it was the same thing. And those who had the chance to take part, well, they were cautiously optimistic. Then the launch happens and the game overshadows its predecessor at the time on Steam numbers alone. And just like I showed, developers made their money back for creating the game in first 2 weeks, and that's great. But it wasn't.
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and Yeah, this is the Payday 3 launch experience. I'm sure Logan Paul's CryptoZoo, enjoyers will probably get paid back a lot quicker than it'll take Starbreeze to fix these servers.
Servers broke down and basically the game was only playable for a few people in a few places in the world. Now, according to the later notes, the issue caused unrecoverable situation for Starbreeze's third-party matchmaker partner. But you had beta before, and yes, they do address that the beta didn't catch that, and let's say that that was a freak accident and the love of the fans was so overwhelming. Okay, but you know what would have saved all of this? Offline mode! So let's not tiptoe around this issue. As soon as I saw it was always online, it went from a buy to a hard pass. Fans expected the same functionality as its predecessor, and offline mode was a very big part of it. Seeing games go always online is a massive pill to swallow, and often it's only for the worst, as the case of this launch particularly so painfully indicated. Even if we set aside the game preservation arguments of what will happen when the servers close, will the game even function or be dead and unplayable once that happens? Offline mode simply offers more than just being able to play the game alone or with no internet. And then, of course, there's also modding involved as well. However, according to developers, they chose Payday 3 to be always online because we wanted to find a new way to both avoid negative aspects like rampant cheating and add capabilities for the game to be more engaging and rewarding for our player base.
I smell bullshit!
So, cheating. Well, okay, I could understand it for a competitive shooter, but Payday is mainly a co-op game, isn't it? So, cheating couldn't have been such a big issue. Besides, benefits of the modding community far outweigh the negatives. Uh-huh. Oh my fucking god! Oh, yeah, here yep, there we go. In fact, it keeps games alive for far too long, like, for example, Skyrim. As for adding capabilities, this is pure snake oil bullshit. See, many times I've heard companies justify addition of online features, especially ones that could be, used, for example, to monetize your gameplay and enjoyment as adding options and capabilities. No, this literally is just a result of wanting to embrace the live service practice. However, another, more interesting story I heard was it was almost exclusively done to combat piracy. This is where you read articles like, the Nuvo, the performance-sucking DRM anti-piracy crap was shoved into Payday 3 and then later removed for the launch of the game. And it kinda does start to make sense. See, apparently Payday 2 and its DLCs were heavily pirated, to a point that hearing about financial problems from its developer Overkill at the time in those 10 years would not surprise you. And you know, maybe it was Starbreeze learning the wrong lesson here. The piracy will kill our company. So, to avoid it, let's overcorrect. Let's remove offline play that makes the game both moddable and so very piratable, and hope no one bats an eye. Sadly, this lesson is the worst one to learn. You should not combat piracy, you dipshits!
My point is that companies so often give you a worse experience when you pay than when you pirate. When you pay full MSRP, full asking price, and don't ask for a discount, you should at the very least get an experience that is on par with what pirates can provide you for free. Unfortunately, many companies nowadays, because of the way media companies work, do not respect the user. They don't respect you, and they treat you like they don't respect you, which is why many people turn to piracy. And there couldn't be a better example of this than what you have today with Sony.
Point is, like with Steam back in the day, the right lesson here should be, no, rather than thinking of how to stop people from pirating our game, instead, let's offer more convenient, better service, access or product than piracy. So tell me, is Payday 3 with its always online lockdown, not moddable, grindy bullshit a better experience than what piracy offers? Seriously, Starbreeze, this is like the lesson toddler learns in an internet school. You do not fight piracy, you beat it. I can't tell you how happy fanbase would have been to support and cheer you on if Payday 3 was just a better Payday 2, even if it was just a one-to-one copy-paste job with new engine. Just think about it. And if you need a very similar example, Stellaris, Hearts of Iron, and Europe Universalis from Paradox Games. All of their games, well, they are single player and multiplayer, but generally speaking, they're really easy to pirate. However, the company also sells expansions and DLCs ad nauseum. However, they do not sell bullshit microtransactions, no live service crap, just great games with good prices. And as an added bonus, you only need one person in your party if you're playing with somebody to have a DLC, and everyone suddenly has access to that gameplay. Now that is how you make great games, and people are happy to buy this stuff rather than pirate it. So turning back to Payday 3, this is why even today, with these minor hinting changes at something positive, it's simply not enough to turn around Payday 3 from being a dead-on-arrival game, because it's simply not as friendly to the customer as its past self. And there you go, that's the failures of Payday 3. And you know, it's kind of funny that I delved back into a game that honestly I didn't like at all, but came out really liking it. I've learned what made Payday 2 so fun, and though it's not my style, I've grown a whole new appreciation for it. And I'm not just saying that because they have my favorite rifle, the F2000, on its roster. So now looking at Payday 3 and the fact that it stumbled on its gameplay, regressing it, putting in more pointless grind, all in the service for the live service dream of doing less work for more money, it's just kinda disappointing. And like I said, they broke even on the second week, so clearly, no matter if it's always online or not, the game would have done gangbusters already, because its community loves the game. But no! Let's fight piracy and prepare for future monetization. Let's corporatize this anti-corporate game. Wouldn't that be ironic? So there you have it. Go play Payday 2. It's a good rush, but Payday 3, no. No thank you. As always, if you enjoy my work, of course, do check out the Patreon and maybe give a fucking toss a buck my way. Or maybe YouTube members, or perhaps check out the merch store or something. But in the end, that's the failure of. A sort of a shorter one this time, but you know, it's kind of interesting. It reminds me of the failure of Kerbal 2, which also had similarly disastrous launch. However, it's still wallowing in a gutter, but that one had different issues regardless. So maybe check that out as well. Or maybe recent Starfield. That one actually released in, by all accounts, a better state. However, its failures were less explicit, but oddly more devastating in subtle ways.